The Big Ten is going to be California dreaming starting in 2024. Now, we know USC is probably going to be one of the best teams, one of the best programs in the Big Ten Conference when we expand to 16 teams in 2024. But what about their LA brethren? What about UCLA? Where do they slot in? Can the Bruins be one of the top teams in the Big Ten starting in 2024? Before we answer that, just a reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Big Ten content all offseason long. Always crush that like button to spread the word of Big Ten TED to the masses. It's about the talent. It's about the personnel. When you talk about success on the field, when you talk about USC and UCLA coming over, where do they slot in? Where can they compete? In the Big Ten Conference, you got to talk about their talent because that's where games are won and lost. Who's on the field? How talented of a team do you have? Are the matchups forever in your favor? Let's talk first about recruiting when we talk about UCLA. 2022, they would have been 10th out of 16 in this new Big Ten Conference. 2023, 7th out of 16. They're recruiting right around those tier 2 types of teams. The Wisconsins, the Iowas, the Illinois, in recruiting at least, Nebraska. That's where UCLA is slotting in terms of the recruiting side of things. Now you go over to the transfer class, and it's a little bit different for the chip off the old block. 2022, they were 6th in the country in their transfer class, 2nd in the Big Ten, trailing only to USC. 2023, this year's incoming transfer class, 3rd in the country, 2nd in the Big Ten, behind, you guessed it, USC. Chip Kelly is a coach that has adapted to the modern day age and how we acquire talent in the current day of college football. Here's the thing, the asterisk that you need to put by the side of the transfer argument for UCLA. These are often guys that you get for a year, maybe 2 years. Very rarely do you get transfers for 3 years like you do out of recruiting. Recruiting is still the lifeblood of our sport. When you talk about being a top team in the Big Ten, you talk about being a top team in college football. Ohio State's, Michigan's, Penn State's, USC's. These are some programs, especially at the top, the Ohio States and Michigans, that are going to compete for national championships. What do all of those programs have in common? They are elite recruiting programs. They are consistently recruiting in the top 10 in the country. UCLA, they're outside the top 25 right now in recruiting. Now I know it's UCLA, USC, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. Those are blue bloods in the sport of college football. And Chip Kelly is trying to continue to build this program up and up and up. But when we talk about being a top team, when we talk about consistently putting a product on the field that can win 10 games, that can win 11 games, you have to have a really good to great recruiting class every single season. Although the transfer portal provides a ton of benefits for some of these other teams, look at the teams at the top. Look at the Georgias. Look at the Bamas. Look at the Ohio States. Look at the Clemsons. Look at the Michigans. Look at all of those teams. They recruit an excellent class on a year-by-year basis. And the top talent that comes to those schools usually stays at those schools and really turns into some of the best players in college football. So if UCLA wants to be a top team, they're going to have to continue to take an uptick in recruiting, and they have taken jumps in recruiting. Being able to land Dante Moore was such a big-time get for UCLA, and that's where I want to transition. Because this year, I mentioned it before in some of my other live shows, in some of my other videos, it's a bridge year for UCLA to get Dante Moore ready so he can possibly be one of the best quarterbacks in the country when the Bruins enter the conference in 2024. That is so big right now to where UCLA is going to slot in. Okay, if Dante Moore doesn't live up to hype and he's fine by the time UCLA enters the Big Ten in 2024, I don't know if they're going to have the success that they would, where if Dante Moore really progresses well during his freshman season and when he jumps to his sophomore season, he is really talented. If they can get to that point, UCLA, maybe the sky is the limit for the Bruins at that point. They have an advantage. Chip Kelly has been there. He's done that. I think he knows what it takes to get towards the top of college football, right? Taking Oregon to national championship games, taking Oregon to Rose Bowls. Chip Kelly is a pretty darn good option for transitioning your program from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. Both Chip Kelly and Jim Mora have proven that you can win at UCLA. Jim Mora twice during his reign as the Bruins head coach won 10 games. You look at Chip Kelly's doing 8-win seasons, 9-win seasons. He's building this UCLA program. But, and there's always a but, if UCLA wants to join the top, if they want to compete at the top of the Big Ten, they need to go where Westwood football has never gone before. Okay, because this is a team, they've gone to Rose Bowls back in the 90s. They've had good teams. They've competed. They haven't really got to a Pac-12 championship game, but they've been in the mix at some point or another. In order to ascend to the top of the Big Ten, you need, as I said before, you need to ascend to the top of college football. And right here, right now, as many strides forward as UCLA is taking, as much improvements as they're making as a program, I just don't see UCLA consistently being in that top tier every single season. What I see for UCLA, I see them as a really good tier 2 team. Because I want to quickly take a look at Maryland as an example. Like the teams that are on campus in College Park right now are maybe some of the better teams Maryland has ever seen. But they're not playing in the ACC anymore. You're not playing Georgia Tech. You ain't playing Duke. You ain't playing Wake Forest anymore. This is the Big Ten where the level of competition goes up. Yes, your recruiting is going to go up. Look at Rutgers. These might be, despite them having the record that they have, these might be some of the better Rutgers teams that we've seen since the mid-2000s. And they're still winning 4 games and 5 games, something like that every single season. So the recruiting is going to go up at UCLA, but the level of play and the competition is also going to go up at UCLA. Even if Oregon and Washington joins the conference, I think they slide in very nicely in that tier 2 with the Iowas, with the Wisconsins, with the Minnesotas. That's where I see UCLA living. 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 wins. Maybe they can vault up to an 11-win season every now and then, like the teams that I just mentioned there below for UCLA. They can get it done. This is a team that can get to that level. I just don't know how consistently. They need to really step up their recruiting if they want to get to that level every single year. But I like the leader they got. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think UCLA can be a top team in the Big Ten Conference consistently? Or like me, do you think they're floating around right in that tier 2 level where maybe they can pop up every now and then? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.